Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Are We There Yet? First, before we get into anything, I want to congratulate Jenica Ramos. You are the Vibratex monthly winner this month. And please email us at awty@gmail.com and set up to pick out your Vibratex toy that you've won. And remember, anyone can enter to win. We're gonna give them away until we run out. And to do that, you subscribe to the show, or what else, Mara? What else can people do?
You can like us on Instagram.
Like us on Instagram.
And we will sign you up to win a toy.
Yes, so definitely do that. Congratulations, Jenica. Enjoy your toy. Yay. All right, let's get into this. Episode 37. Living alone together is the theme. It's called One Call Away. I'm your host, Susan Ruth.
And I'm your host, Mara Adelman, and we are two humans having the conversations and raising all those questions that we have about where is there when it comes to dating, relationships, and sex. Ooh. My there is that I am totally going to be part of the LAT community. They call it the LATs, Living Alone Togethers, the acronym. And I have always felt this way as a more mature adult. I lived with two people in my lifetime. And no, I love this concept. And I think a large portion of it is I've been hearing about so much bad behavior. Remember when COVID hit and in China and Wuhan, like a year later, everybody got divorced and split up? It was like a thing. And they kept predicting it here. And I kept thinking, oh, good. All these eligible men will be divorced and ready to date in like a year's time. And they'll have their acts together, right? I think it's happening now. It almost feels like this delayed response because everybody I'm talking to is dissolving. 9 years together, 10 years together, falling apart.
Well, I think the COVID epidemic forcing people to be together 24/7. I don't know who could. There's probably very few people that could take that kind of experience, especially if we know that opposites attract a lot of times. So if you have one partner who loves their alone time, needs to reset and recoup, and then we have another partner in the relationship who needs more attention or wants to be together all the time, the day-to-day life keeps that balance. You get something like the pandemic where suddenly those parameters are gone and all there is each other. Woo, that's a lot for even the bestest couples, probably.
Did you see them?
Explain a little living alone together, which, by the way, since I was a little kid, I've believed in the philosophy that couples should maybe live next door to each other or down the street from each other or across town.
I should high five right now. We have always believed this.
I really have. Also, when you live with someone, I've done it a few times myself. If you are going to choose to live with someone, I highly recommend everyone gets their own tube of toothpaste. There's a lot of fights that can happen over toothpaste tubes.
And maybe it's okay if you live together, but maybe sometimes the spare bedroom is somebody's, right? It's okay to still
Separate.
Have some separation because so we'll go through pros and cons later, but yeah, it's a huge thing. I also, based on all the stories I'm hearing, unfortunately, from the people that are dissolving, I have a couple clients, I have some family, I have some friends, they're all dissolving. And it's torturous after 9 or 10 years. I'm listening to all of them and I forget, because I've been single and living alone, that when you're dissolving a household and sharing pets or children and trying to remember how to sleep alone after not literally sleeping alone for 9 years, the amount of emotional stuff I'm hearing from the women and from one man is a lot. And so the other thing is, if you live alone together, but it dissolves, you're not wrapped up financially. You're not as wrapped up emotionally. You still have you separate from the we.
Well, let's explain what living alone together means, firstly, for those who don't know.
So it's just becoming a more frequent thing. I have some statistics. I don't believe these statistics because I feel like I actually know more people that do it. Yeah.
Well, before we get into statistics, explain what it is.
Just like a definition. Living alone together are two people who want to be in a committed monogamous relationship with each other, but do not have any interest in combining households.
Got it.
So they're your intimate partner, they're your person, you go on dates, you have sex with them. It's just like being in a relationship, but you're not on that relationship escalator of, oh, now it's time to move in together. Now it's time to do this. Now it's time. And there's even couples that do it with children. There's people that do it. It's much more common now in people in their like 50s and 60s because they're like, why would I do that again when
So
I've done?
immediately all the lesbians have turned off watching this because we all know that they get together and move in on the second date.
Isn't that the joke about the U-Haul?
Yeah, the U-Haul joke.
U-Haul
I
joke.
watched so many funny TikToks about that from the lesbian community that is in the LGBTQ community. It's so funny.
It is really funny. So yeah, they're like, they've tuned off. They're like, no,
They're like, no, whatever.
we want to be together. So that's kind of a definition. And already this is interesting. So in general, if you even take it away from relationships, 27.6% of US households are a one-person household in 2020. So that's over a quarter of the households. In 1940, it was only 7%. So there's also just been a change in societal norms where people are living alone in general, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, here's the thing with that stat though, that is, I don't know if it's taken into account because I haven't read the article, but we are living in financially devastating times. And so a lot of people choose to cohabitate because it makes financial sense.
Yes. That was actually taken from the 2020 census data. And that is surprising. But that was 2020 though. It'd be interesting to see what the next census, was it every 5 years they do it? Because this was pre-pandemic-y, right? So I bet you those numbers go down for financial reasons, right?
Or go up because people have to live together because
oh no, that's what I mean. The number of people living together may have go up. We're saying the same thing. Yeah, because COVID made financial hard on everybody too. Yeah, but again, these are just reported numbers. 6% of couples in the United States are living alone together, and 10% in Europe from an article I found. Sex and the City had an episode called The Situation where Carrie kept her own place. She was way ahead of the times.
I just never watched that show. I feel like it's so zeitgeisty, such a moment from a particular era, which was it 20 years ago?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, but remember our Vibratex toys that we give away
are in that,
the first Vibratex rabbit in Sex and the City. So that I think it's been at least 20 years. Yeah.
Wow, not wow.
And then the movies came out after that. But anyway, Carrie did it. She was like ahead of her times. So let's go through a little bit of the pros. And I think you and I will totally be like, ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
I'll go in the order of some of my favorites. So you have your own living space. Fabulous. We already do that now. Your downtime is your own time. Instead of your downtime is like having to deal with somebody else's noise and they're both got competing things going on. You make scheduled time to actually date and meet your partner. So it gives you something to look forward to. Hey, I'll see you on Friday night. I'm going to go be busy and you go be busy. And now we do this thing, right? Way more individuality. You're not compromising your personal routine. You can keep your own decor, which is often a fight when men and women move in together. In my 20s, it was like, are you really going to put the deer antlers up in the living room? Come on. I
don't think it's just men and women. I think people in general, two different personalities come together and
anybody dating, roommates, anybody. Yeah, that's a hard one. You don't have to get super annoyed by those little quirks you think are cute in the beginning. And then all of a sudden you're like, if you swallow like that one more time, I'm going to stab you with the kitchen knife.
Yeah, isn't that the old saying that the thing you find most adorable in your partner will be the thing you hate the most when you break up?
Yes, that is what they say. So it's soft, like you think it's all cute and then it's just not. The best part that I think you would agree with is I want to stay focused on my own interests. I want to have my friend life be the same. I want to have time with my animals. When you become a we that lives together, I feel like a lot of that individuality and things you enjoy to do, you have less time for.
Well, it's trickier too to grow apart together when you are together all the time and never apart.
Yeah, you mean personal growth. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was well said though, but I got it. Yeah. If you're always
together, bit of a tongue twister.
If you're always together and never apart, your personal growth can go down the tubes.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like the amount of self-growth I've done in the last couple of years could not have possibly happened if I was more worried about what my person is doing and where they are. And no.
Well, I think in a balanced and healthy relationship, you have a better chance at that. But let's be honest, many relationships are pretty codependent, and it does not really help stimulate growth.
that is what I feel. And I mean, and again, from all the people I'm talking to who are breaking apart, they're like, wow, we haven't grown as a couple. I haven't grown by myself because we got in this stagnant cycle of bad communication. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. We did a podcast on it. So instead, you're spiraling down this horrible thing of not getting along. And where is there room for anything but that? Ugh. Less need to compromise. You're a bit more on your best behavior because you're excited because it's date night versus rolling out of bed, looking your worst, forget to brush your teeth before sex. You're just a little more excited about like keeping it fresh. Can you think of any others? I mean, there's other ones on here for people that don't relate to me. Better career advancement, better school districts, like if you need to move for those reasons. Possible tax rebates, investment in real estate for both of you. Yeah. Anything that pops out at you as like your favorites?
I mean, I enjoy alone time. So for me, that would be the biggest one. And it's not incomprehensible to have a partner who, when you say, I need alone time, for them to say, okay, cool, you do you, and not be hurt by that or that sort of thing. It's interesting. I had a partner once who, for my birthday, I wanted to kind of have my own time. I wanted to go to the movie by myself. I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to be by myself. They lived somewhere else and they wanted me to fly and go and do something or have them fly in. I was like, you know what? I really appreciate that, but that's not my vibe. And they later told me that it really hurt their feelings that I didn't want to spend my birthday with them. And I thought, well, it's my birthday. Like, what can I do what I want? It's just it was interesting, but they have their legitimate feelings. They're allowed their feelings, but I try to explain that my birthday wasn't about them. It's not about me, but anyway, it's interesting.
It is interesting. And it kind of goes back to like episode 10 we did on attachment styles, that they might have been a little more anxious. And because you didn't want to spend your birthday with them, it brought up feelings of abandonment. Maybe she doesn't love me as much. Maybe I'm not as important, but you're like, it's my birthday.
Yeah. And of course, none of those thoughts were in my head. My whole thing was, I get to wake up late. I'm going to make macaroni and cheese. I'm going to wear pajamas. I'm going to, chill out and go for a walk and pet dogs and then take myself to the movies or whatever it was, anyway.
I think you and I are a lot alike that way, is that we're very good at filling up our time and taking ourselves on dates and buying ourselves flowers, like our favorite song. So if that all goes away, I would feel very stifled. And I have an anxious attachment style, but I would still feel very stifled if somebody was all over me all the time.
I saw something the other day. I may have sent it to you, and I unfortunately don't remember who the content creator was that stated it, but they said that statistically, they did not talk of men. They said they were talking about women. They said statistically, or people who identify as women, I suppose, statistically that after a toxic or bad relationship, a woman, if she doesn't immediately go back into a relationship, if she spends time alone and develops that sense of self and alone self, that the likelihood after 2 years of being alone, the likelihood of them ever getting back in a relationship starts going down a whole bunch. What was interesting is that they didn't correlate it with, and that's a terrible thing. They correlated with, that's a good thing because they're not just going to willy-nilly give their time and energy away. They're far more selective. And, I think people get a bad reputation for saying, oh, my standards are X, Y, Z. And I don't know that, I think saying that, oh, my standards are high, that's a weird thing to say. It's not that they're high, you just know who you are and what you want. It's neither high nor low. It just, that's what you.
I call myself particular.
Yeah.
I know what I want. When I see it, I know. It doesn't always line up with what's exactly healthy for me, but I'm getting better at that. And what I'm finding, and I'm not trying to generalize, but again, all of those relationships that I know that are breaking apart, the women are going to go do what you just said, fix themselves, find their friends, find their passions. Every single man in those relationships has already moved on before the woman's even out of the house or barely out of the house,
and having an emotional affair beforehand, or, well, I think a lot of people do that. They have an emotional affair and then it escalates.
But I would have to look up statistics, but I'm 90% sure that men go that route way more than women do. And women are much more like introspective for a bit. Based on even just the handful of things I'm seeing, I'm like, interesting. But again, that all goes back to the societal pieces around how men don't have the outlets that we have. We would call our friends and we would go to a support network and we would have a counselor. So anyway, yes. I mean,
I think
actually,
many people are quite uncomfortable being alone
yes,
for whatever reason.
men and women, totally.
And anyone, a non-binary,
Yeah.
anybody. I mean, everyone and anyone, whatever shape or form you come in, I think there is a deep loneliness in people, and that they feed that loneliness by attaching to another person, even if it's toxic, or not even, it doesn't even have to be toxic, maybe just sort of there.
Like blah. Yeah. Well, and that whole concept is also because then they don't have to look at themselves or do any work on themselves because you're so focused on this relationship. And so
Sure.
it actually finally, so I took my sexology program 6 years ago, and in her marketing section, she kept saying, you need to find a niche. When you find a niche, that's how you get successful. Find a niche, find a niche. And I've done some couples coaching, but this last couple I did, I was like, I think my niche is couples right now. This is crazy. I'm not even in a couplehood. So my goal is hopefully to do a bunch of like couple retreats and bring them together and share a bunch of information that will, my goal though is like getting them at like 10% dysfunctional. Once they cross over this certain line, we'll talk about that. They call it the walk away wife syndrome. I feel like once you hit this mark, and then we'll go into cons, but it's just kind of rolled into that. So there's this term called the walk away wife. Essentially what happens in relationships a lot of times is the female partner will say, I want this to change. I would like this to be a little different. I would like this to look like this. And then the man tries, but can't quite meet up. And then I picture it like a light switch. Light switch dims a little bit. You're not meeting my needs. Try again, not meeting my needs. Try. No. And eventually that light switch goes off and the wives are like, yeah, I'm done. And this happens a lot to couples. And then what happens is that, of course, the sex goes away. And then all of a sudden the man's like, oh, now I notice. Again, I'm totally generalizing from what I see out there and only heteronormative couples. But then it's like, oh, now I notice. And now I need to go have an emotional affair or a physical affair. And then it just all disintegrates. And so if you can get them on the same page and build the foundation a little earlier, like maybe even before kids. But yeah, anyway, so I'm excited to work on that in the future and figure out how to help couples.
I know several couples, they happen to be heteronormative. I know several couples where the female of the couple is not that interested in sex. They had their children and they just sort of didn't go into looking as to why they're not interested anymore. They're just not interested, and that's the end of the story. Their husband's still being quite interested in sex, of course, and not of course, but generally. And so the women are looking the other way, if you will. But nobody wants a divorce because they care deeply about their partner, their best friends. Every other aspect is great, except for this need not being met. It's quite interesting.
But then if we take it back to the living alone together, children are not children. Hey, babe, you take the kids for a couple of days. I'm going to have the house to myself, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now come back. Ooh, we're going to have a quickie. This is all exciting. I don't know. But it was postulated that on a podcast I listened to, that those people that lived alone together, there might be increased rates of infidelity because of the space issue. But I actually do not think so. I actually think if you can do that well and have the space and have a good relationship doing that, you're going to actually have less infidelity and more sex, because it keeps it exciting. Because every woman I've coached and every woman I talk to and all of my clients or my patients at the clinic say the same thing. Sorry to all the men listening. We've talked about this before. I'm bored to death. They know how to do A, B, C, and D, and all they do is A, B, C, and D. And there's no excitement. And they're not trying very hard to help me have an orgasm. It's wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. I got my needs met. Thanks, babe. And so unfortunately, it's not exciting for the woman. So why would she keep doing that?
I think a movie that is such a great example of this is Stupid Crazy Love.
I don't remember it. Which one is it?
Ryan Gosling, Steve Carell, Julianne Moore.
Yeah.
It's and Emma Stone. It's a really beautiful, pointed explanation. The movie opens with Julianne Moore and Steve Carell on a date night at a fancy restaurant. She's dressed to the nines, high heels, beautiful, she's a beautiful woman. Steve Carell, handsome guy, wearing, he's wearing, I feel like if I remember right, he might have been wearing a suit. He was dressed up kind of, but he's wearing tennis shoes. And the movie starts on their shoes. There's just so much information in such a tiny little detail of tennis shoes and these beautiful high heels. And then it pans up, they're having dinner. They've just finished dinner. They're about to order dessert. They're looking at the menus. And Steve Carell says, let's say what we want at the same time. And I don't remember what dessert he picked, but at the same time they speak, he says, I think it's like, I want creme brulee. And she says, I want a divorce. Such a great scene, such a great movie, highly recommend it. And of course, Steve Carell in the movie happens upon Ryan Gosling, who has spied him being a disaster. And Ryan Gosling steps in to help him remember how to be, as they put it, a man or whatever, which is neither here nor there. But the idea of how to re-woo your wife,
yes,
or your partner,
yes,
if you put it in general terms, it was really so well done and very funny.
Unfortunately, there's a lot less wooing that goes on. The more time that goes by, the more the kids are there. And as women, we need more. Remember, like we did that whole thing on sexual response cycles. They need to feel some desire before they feel sexual. Men are a much more immediate light switch a lot of times. And again, we're generalizing, but this is
sure. And any number of life experiences could also change the trajectory of what seemed like a healthy relationship and send it toward the rails. I have a friend. They were in a relationship for a decade or more probably, and they grew apart. A couple of tragedies within the relationship in their whose ever family, and instead of moving toward each other, a lot of times during those situations people move away because they don't know they don't know how to access those feelings or the vulnerability. And then the day-to-day grind becomes so, you wake up, you go to work, you come home, you watch TV, you go to bed, repeat, rinse, recycle, whatever. And 10 years go by. And I said to this friend, do you think that you'd forgotten how to really just be in a relationship, how to date, how to woo, how to hear each other, how to talk to each other, how to be present? And they said, absolutely, yes, that was the problem.
And there's a saying I heard that saying, trying to avoid conflict creates conflict. So when you stop trying to talk about things, it's still on.
Well, it's like I said a couple episodes back, the fight over who's loading the dishwasher wrong has nothing to do with the dishwasher, because who gives a shit about a dishwasher?
Or like you said, the toothpaste tube, nothing to do with the toothpaste tube.
Yeah. Well, I find the toothpaste tube thing is more about a controlling personality, maybe. But I do think people have very different toothpaste philosophies, if you will. There are those who are capped, those who are capless, those who squeeze from the middle, those who curl it up from the back. If you each have your own personal toothpaste, there won't be a problem.
Or like we're saying right now,
you're saving lives.
Your own separate houses. But let's go to the cons now, because like we talked about, the expense is the biggest thing.
I was gonna say, it's so expensive.
It's so expensive, but like if I can do it myself right now and I can find ways to do that, I would like to keep it that way, right? So the expense of having two of everything in two houses, the upkeep of two homes. I'm not lying, every now and then it would be so nice to have somebody to do half the chores around here, but it wouldn't be worth giving up the independence for that. I'm just gonna keep trudging along on the chore lane, right? You don't always have that immediate person to console you, or like you're having a really bad day, but maybe they live an hour away and that's how you're doing things. You don't have that person to come give you a big hug. But honestly, with FaceTime and all that now, to me, that works. It's still support. Have a phone conversation, right?
I live in Santa Monica. If you told somebody in Los Feliz that can you come over and comfort me, they'd say, well, Sunday, maybe there's not so much traffic.
When there's not 4 hours of traffic, I will come comfort you. That's funny. Yeah, right. Lack of intimacy for some people because you're not sleeping together, like in bed all the time. Society's going to think it's super.
Although you'll get a much better night's sleep.
Oh, that was not even on the pros list. Do you know how many couples I know that sleep in separate bedrooms just because of the snoring?
Or the tossing and turning or the overheating or whatever.
One person
Cuddle, have the post coitus cuddle, do your thing, and then sneak away and have an awesome night's sleep.
That sounds amazing to me too. I know. Um, you might miss out on the closeness gained from compromise, but again, I feel like you can do that from afar. That's still, you're still going to be having a lot of conversations about how you both like things. Harder to integrate friends and family, like less of a unit, like we're going to have a barbecue. Well, whose house are we going to bring the family to? Like all those pieces, right? I'm kind of poo-pooing them all because I'm still thinking that this is like how everybody should live if everybody can afford it. Less opportunity for spontaneity. That is very true, because all of a sudden, instead of like, you just get to get up and decide you're going to make waffles together, it's like, oh, we have to make a plan to get together for breakfast, right? Less spontaneity.
That's why living next door is nice, or across the street or down the block.
Oh, what? Yeah, right. In a perfect world, you would have like two houses, like a compound. More
Mhm.
people need to live in compounds.
Mm.
Your hair's all blowing in the breeze. And that's kind of it for cons. Can you think of any other cons?
Oh, lots of cons, mostly how expensive. I mean, that's really the biggest one,
I agree with that.
especially childcare, and for a lot of people
Childbearing.
traveling, cars are expensive, time.
Yeah,
It's just, I see the impediments to it, and that's a pretty tall pile. Whereas the pros feel more emotional, where the cons feel more just pragmatic.
yeah. Logistical. You're totally right. Actually, the pros are like, how do we stay whole as a person, and this is how do we stay whole financially, and time. What time and money? Time and money.
Money is king.
Money is king, unfortunately.
Mhm.
That is very true. I still like, I'm going to find a way to do it. The interesting thing, so we linked to a bunch of things down below. A lot of the couples that are doing it, there was a bunch of like little news articles that we linked to. A lot of the couples that are doing it tend to be like 50s, like because more established financially, more capable of living alone.
More set in their ways too.
Yeah, more
Yeah.
set in their ways, did that, tried that, didn't like it, right?
How many times have you lived with someone?
I have lived with somebody twice, and then we bought a house, like played house at 20 with stepkids. And then like there's been a couple times in my life where it's like they were always over at my place and we might as well have lived together.
Mhm.
What about you?
4 times.
Yeah.
4 times.
And looking back, if you could do it
Wait.
differently.
Is that right? Uh-huh. Mm, mm, mm. Maybe 5 times, actually. Yeah. Anyway.
If you could go back and do it again, do you think your relationships would have been different if you kept it more separate? Or they would have been not workable anyway?
Mm, uh, it's a good question. I don't think ultimately workable anyway, because logistics. Yeah, no. Maybe it sped up the inevitable living together.
Maybe that.
So that's a pro.
It is a pro.
Sign for living together.
Yeah, because then you're going to find out sooner rather than later if you should keep doing it in the first place, right? It's
I mean, maybe the answer is to win the lottery, buy a house that has wings, like always maxi pads. So you can
everybody gets a wing.
everybody gets a wing.
Well, and in 2 weeks, or sorry, in a month, because we're putting it out in a month, we're going to talk about hookup culture, which also is fascinating. It's almost like it kind of, well, it doesn't quite play into this. I had this thought earlier that it did though. Like, no, separate thought, brain fart.
Yeah, I think certainly. I mean, I understand what you're saying, that if you live in separate places, that people will be more apt to cheat. But the truth of that, I feel, is that if you are prone to cheating, or that, either whether it's emotional or physical, that you're going to do that regardless if you're living with somebody or not. I don't think logistically it makes no difference. You're either doing it or you're not doing it. And that's really about how you feel about yourself, or how, whatever the relationship is providing or not providing, blah, blah, blah.
But I go back to, if you're both happy living alone together, it might give you just enough space that why would you do that? Because you're happy with each other.
Yeah, but I mean, one could argue that if living in a house makes you not happy with each other, you've got bigger problems, is all I'm saying.
Well, that's because, again, relationship escalator, people meet, the hormones kick in, they fall madly in love. 6 months later, they're like, let's be official. A year at a year mark where you barely know somebody, it's time to move in. It's like what everybody does, but and especially if they're on the kid train, because we're getting close to our 30s. Okay, now it's a year and a half and you're pregnant and you're married, and it all happens so fast.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Here's to you that we have not done that thing right now.
We didn't have children. I've lived with several people who have had children. So yeah, I guess half and half. Half the people I've lived with had children, half of them didn't. I don't know. It's an interesting theory. I think Katharine Hepburn was the one on some interview. She was asked what her opinion was for a perfect relationship, and she said having your own homes, living separate homes. Yeah.
Well done on her part. Yes.
Yeah.
So we're not the first people to say it.
No, and we won't be the last. But
and in a month from now, we're going to talk all things hookup culture.
My apartment's so small, there's no way someone could live in this apartment with me. I would murder them in their sleep.
Even in my slightly larger place, still no. I live with animals and I still feel like I'm never alone. Somebody always wants my attention when I walk in a room. One of the dogs or one of the cats. I'm like, give me 2 minutes. I'll be right back.
The dog follows you to the bathroom.
Oh, every time. And I'm like, can I just have a minute?
But we do it for them. They're doing it for us, I guess. They expect us to wait for them while they go to the bathroom.
Oh, how funny. I never thought of it like that. They stand.
I think they're guarding. I think that's what they're making sure, that we are safe in such a vulnerable position. That's my assumption.
Oh my God, how cute. I never thought of it like that. I'll be more forgiving next time they're under my feet in the bathroom. Oh, it's been lovely to catch up. I love you to pieces.
I love you. Are we good? Oh, everybody subscribe.
Oh yeah, everybody subscribe. We'll see you in a month to talk about hookup culture. And yeah, that's all we got for this one.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Stay well, be connected, or be well and stay connected. You get to choose. It's a modern world.
All of the above. It's a modern world.
Bye.